Ricarte Vasquez, Administrator for the Panama Canal, thank you so much for joining us on State of Freight.
Thank you for the invitation. It's a pleasure, as always.
Thank you. The canal has seen a reduction in vessel transits for July and August. How much of that is because of the front loading that you saw from the United States with this global trade war? And what's your anticipation moving forward?
Well, actually, what we have seen is an unseasonally high volumes on container traffic moving northbound. So that gives us an indication that some front loading is occurring in anticipation of back to school sales and probably stocking for Christmas sales early on, depending on what the outcome on tariffs and freight rates and everything else is going to affect the landed price of some of these manufactured products and consumer goods. That it has been significant also on automobiles. We have seen a higher number of roll-on, roll-off vessels coming from Asia going to the U.S. market as well. We have seen a decline in two segments, essentially LNG, that we are having very few transits. Usually those are southbound. This means that comes from the Gulf going to Asia. And also we have seen a reduction in some of the grain exports coming from the U.S. that they are using the ports in the Pacific Northwest to unload the cargoes and put it on vessels and then take it across the Pacific. So there have been a readjustment on the fleet. There has been a readjustment on the origin and destinations and the product composition as well. So that is what we are seeing. In summary, front loading, yes, probably in the later part, and we are submitting our budget for next year, which is October to September. And for the first quarter going to December, we anticipate that we will not have the volumes that usually at this time of the year in container cargo we will have as compared to other years because of the front loading that we are seeing right now.
Let's move to the USTR regulations, which, as you know, begin on October 14th. For the audience, these are the fees that Chinese-built vessels will be charged when they call to U.S. ports. And also the Chinese carriers, COSCO and OOCL, they're going to be paying an additional fee. Now, Ricarte, Sea Intelligence data shows that there is a shift beginning to materialize on the Trans-Pacific route of vessels being removed. With your advanced booking system, are you seeing any decrease in future transits as a result of these fees?
Not really, actually. How could they divert some of the cargoes to transfer them to a non-Chinese built vessel is something that they should arrange for. But as what we see right now is that essentially of all vessels transiting the Panama Canal, which are about 12 to 13,000 of them, 1,000 probably will be built in China. So we don't have that pressure on the market because there are alternatives for non-Chinese built vessels to come through the Panama Canal. So the fleets have a lot of flexibility to do that. On the particulars of COSCO or OOCL, we have not seen any reduction in bookings and reservations moving forward.
If there's a fear in any reduced vessel transits going into 2026 or even later later this year, is the authority looking to reinstate the preferred booking slot for LNG carriers to recapture that LNG traffic that was lost during the drought?
We are making two important changes to the whole reservation system. We are introducing LOTSA 2.0. Remember, LOTSA was a booking system that allowed for a full year of reservations at a tender that occurs about October, November, at the end of the calendar year, booking for the following calendar year. Usually what we try to do is to provide that opportunity to companies that require to have certainty on passage for cargoes that have on-time deliveries. Usually LNG is one of those. They use very little of LOTSA this year, but we have revamped the product after conversations with customers. So we had it on a 1 year basis. Now we had it for 6 months only. And there will be another tender probably in April for the second half of next year. That's one part. The second part is that we are introducing flexibility. So how you can change the vessel from an LPG to an LNG or back to an LPG, or moving changing the date of transit to introduce more flexibility. So they have 15 days to arrange to adjust for transit, and that will introduce some flexibility for that. And that, I think, is going to be helpful for them to schedule transits to the Panama Canal. We have some packages that will be very specific, and we have seen shipping companies that go for very specific transits. We have seen some shipping companies that go, okay, give me plus or minus 3 days, plus or minus 10 days, plus or minus 15 days. So we are introducing that flexibility. That announcement should be out next week. We are fine-tuning some of the elements after conversations with the industry, and I think that is going to help. And finally, directly addressing your questions about LNG, there is a window for reservations of LNG vessels. We most likely will reinstate that window of reservations for LNG vessels effective next year as well.
Let's keep with the energy theme. The canal is investing billions of dollars to create this energy corridor, as well as increasing container trade. You've got this liquid pipeline that's been announced, 2 LPG terminals on either side of the canal. That's going to move, what, 2.5 billion barrels of energy, correct, a day without crossing the locks? Yeah. You're in Houston right now. What is the reaction that you're receiving from the energy sector about this project?
No, we are in Panama because we launched today the initiative about the transshipment of NGLs. We had a market approach today. We had about 30 corporations from all over, from Asia, US, and elsewhere, and even South America, interested in NGL terminals, NGL pipelines, NGL capacity, storage capacity, and the like. We had a very good reaction from the Asian market. They sent representatives from Tokyo to come and listen to the presentation. So today, for the very first time, we did a full presentation, including some technical details about it. Not only how we see the market in the next 15 to 20 years, but also where the capabilities that we plan to introduce in structuring a pipeline that is going to move NGLs from the Atlantic side to the Pacific side, and then from there to Asia. The reception is great. We expect to be in Houston, and that's where you got it right, to have one-on-one meetings with some of the people that came to Panama and some others that couldn't make it, so we can hear from them some feedback on the structures and the presentations and the materials that we're going to share with them, with those that show interest in what our proposal is all about. And from there, we're going to narrow down some of the concepts that we are currently keeping in a very wide spectrum, so we can fine-tune that in order to get terms and conditions that are bankable, that can go to the capital markets and get finance, and that we can also assure that there will be off-takers of the products once they transit through the Panama Canal or through the pipeline. That is also one of the investments that the Panama Canal is doing in order to go to the next level, to diversify our revenues and to remain relevant in the international markets.
And thank you for correcting me, and my apologies. So you're a mover and shaker, so I just automatically thought you're going to be in Houston today. That said, are you able to give us any insight into if any U.S. companies are bidding with these projects?
Well, the Houston flight to Panama over the last couple of days was essentially full of people coming to this meeting. So they had their oil and energy meeting on board of some of the flights that came from Houston yesterday and the day before, and they were present here in Panama. So the acceptance or the interest that they have shown on this project is very high. And some of the companies that couldn't make it for other reasons, and probably because couldn't get tickets, I've indicated that they will be interested in having a one-on-one conversations when we get to Houston. So the momentum is rolling. I think that this is jumpstart into the whole concept of having a gas line through the Panama Canal, uh, next to the Panama Canal. And as I mentioned, some of my colleagues, the cat is out of the bag.
Is the canal looking to operate this, or you're going to issue like the ability to operate for an outside company?
An outside company will do the operation, and in essence, what we are looking for is for design, construction, operation, maintenance, uh, the marketing, commercial elements, financing of the piece of infrastructure that we finally will define that is going to be tender out to a concession under a concession agreement. So we are looking for companies, or eventually we will look how the governance and structure of those companies should look like in order to provide safeguards, especially in security, environmental impact, and the like. So we are in the very first stage of that conversation. We are looking for either late October, mid-November to have the second phase of conversations and then adjust the terms and conditions as we see it in order to have something that will satisfy market appetite for this kind of long-term contract.
And when would it be completed once you actually have everything underway?
If everything goes on schedule, we should have operations probably first half of 2031 for the whole project. There have been suggestions, for example, today on the possibility of breaking down the project so it will be on a permanent improvement process. That could be another possibility. So everything that we are hearing now from the market is something that we will take, evaluate, and then come to terms in saying this is the best solution that better fit market demand, the appetite of a contractor or concession agency, and then the Panama Canal. So we believe that this is the very first step. It's not written in stone. It's the first step that from which we're going to start evolving for eventually terms of reference for an international tender. Bear in mind that in the case of the Panama Canal, we have to tender out these contracts.
The authority is also looking to expand into the container terminals. Have you identified, is it definitely the port of Corozal on the Atlantic side, and what port would it be on the Pacific side on the West Coast?
It will be on the East Bank. On the Pacific side, it will be Corozal. On the Atlantic side, we are looking at Telfers. This is what we have presented. We did that presentation on Tuesday to the local media and the local interests. We indicated that we are moving really fast on that one because we could jumpstart that one and move a lot faster, given that we tender out Corozal about 8 years ago, 10 years ago. So some of the work we did then has to be updated to current market conditions and current market structures. So we are doing that process and that review. Similarly to what we have done with the gas line, that we made a soft approach to market, we are expecting that in the month of October, we can do a soft approach to market for terminal operators, shipping lines, and the relevant market uh, interest that could be part of also another concession agreement on behalf of the Panama Canal.
With the concession agreement, will Chinese companies be able to bid for concession with these terminals?
Well, the terms of how the concessions are going to be structured depends and has to be taken to our board of directors. So in essence, at this time, we had made no decision whatsoever, and probably we cannot comment because it's something that has to be considered and studied and see, because it's very difficult to single out anyone at this moment. And we want to have the most open and competitive tender that we can possibly have.
The Port of Corozal is connected by both road and rail. Maersk's subsidiary APM Terminals purchased that concession from CPKC and Lanco back in April. Is the canal looking to keep that concession going, or is the canal possibly looking to revoking that concession so the canal can operate it themselves?
That concession was issued by the Maritime Authority, not by the Panama Canal. I think that was one action taken by APM in order to make sure that they had the connectivity for cargoes moving across the isthmus here in Panama. The rail will remain a connector between the terminals in the Atlantic and the Pacific. That's no question about it. But in essence, if there is any change on the terms and conditions of that concession, has to be addressed and directed by the Panama Maritime Authority, not the Panama Canal.
Okay. And finally, as we're wrapping up here, the recent legal battle for CK Hutchinson is an example of the revoking of the concessions. I've spoken with BlackRock. They have no comment. As you know, they're one of the leads when it comes to, possibly tossing their hat in the ring, of course, to operate the ports that CK presently operates. Any update in regards to what is going on?
No, we have no news, actually. And once again, that is something that the Panama Maritime Authority has to handle because it's their concession. If they ask us for technical support and information, we provide that. But that's something that they are working very close to their chest. We have no information whatsoever about it. And this is essentially, bear in mind that the Panama Canal operation is somewhat detached or very detached from central government operations. And we maintain that separation at all times. We share information, we share some concepts, we share ideas at the time, but the actual negotiation has to be done at central government level. And when an announcement is made, we will learn it alongside with other Panamanians as well.
The Trump administration. Thank you. President Trump is overseas, and there was more news today in terms of how the United States is looking at Chinese-controlled ports. I don't have to go into the history of what's been going on with the Trump administration and Panama. How are things going when it comes to the relationship of the Port Authority and the U.S. government?
I believe it's business as usual. We have seen nothing changing the flow, the container work, the traffic that goes there. The level of transshipment has declined a little bit this year, especially because now we have more water. So vessels didn't need to come lighter to transit the Panama Canal. We had 50 feet of draft throughout the year. Remember that last year we were down to 44 feet. So we have to remove some of the cargoes and move it through rail or trucks to move to the other part of the ocean so they could transit light the Panama Canal. We don't have that situation right now. So a significant volume of transshipment that otherwise would have used the land bridge is now using the water bridge because they go to the final destination transiting at full capacity. But that is the only impact we see in the volumes probably, but nothing different to what the regular operation of these ports is.
Ricarte Vasquez, Administrator of the Panama Canal Authority, thank you so much for joining us.
My pleasure.